From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In the NoCo. I'm Brad Turner, in today for Aaron O'Toole. A unique production of one of the most popular musicals in history presents the final shows of its run this weekend in Boulder. Those are the opening strains of Fiddler on the Roof. More than a year ago, the show's director set out to stage Fiddler, with the rabbi from one of Boulder's Jewish congregations playing the lead role of Tevye. Rabbi Marc Soloway of Congregation Bonai Shalom had trained and worked as an actor before becoming a rabbi. And he'd always dreamed of playing Tevye, who wrestles with faith, tradition, and persecution. But in the months between the initial planning and opening night, tragedy struck. An anti-Semitic attack in Boulder last June saw a gathering of Jewish residents firebombed, leading to multiple injuries and one death. Many of the victims attend Congregation Bonai Shalom. Ultimately, the cast and crew moved forward with the Fiddler performances, and the show opened earlier this month. Rabbi Soloway joined me before the final shows this weekend, along with the show's director, Sarah Nowak. She started by explaining why the concept for this production intrigued her.
Having a rabbi in that role brings such a level of authenticity and intimacy to it. Tevye's relationship to God in the story, I think, is so interesting, especially in the song Rich Man.
If I were a rich man,
He talks about how he wishes he could go to the synagogue and pray and spend time learning and reading Torah. And I think it's kind of beautiful that this character is being played by someone who does get to live that life.
If I were a bitty rich,
Marc, in the intro, I mentioned last summer's attack, which injured several members of your congregation. I wonder if you could share some impressions of how the aftermath affected the way you think about the Jewish community in Boulder.
We've been thinking so much and feeling so much what it really means to feel safe. And safety is, of course, a physical aspects of feeling safe, but also emotional, spiritual, like what does it really mean to live in a safe community? And I think in the 21 years that I've lived here in Boulder, always have felt safe, safe as a human, safe as a Jew, safe as a rabbi and a leader in the Jewish community. But that was kind of called to question, and it continues to be called to question as we see more and more anti-Semitism expressing itself in all kinds of different ways, which I don't necessarily want to get into, but it is important to acknowledge that it really does exist. And so the aftermath of June the 1st has really, a lot of people feel afraid, on the second night of Hanukkah, which was just the day after the horrific shooting attack on Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. We had a public Hanukkah lighting on Pearl Street, and we were outside the courthouse right in front of the spot where that horrific firebombing attack happened on June the 1st. And being in that place, some people didn't feel safe to come the day after the shooting in Sydney, but Hanukkah is about resilience. Hanukkah is about us continuing to light candles and bring the light of faith and hope and courage into the world, even in the face of adversity. So we ended up doing this flash mob, which we were very sensitive about whether it was the right thing to do in the wake of that attack. But we did it, and we did a flash mob, which was basically the opening song from Fiddler on the Roof, which of course is tradition, and with the papas, the mamas, the sons and the daughters each sharing their traditions through that song.
Tradition, 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 tradition.
And there's a line that Tevye says, saying, you may ask if it's so dangerous, why do we stay? And then the line is, we stay because Tevye is our home. And there was something when I said that line in that context that felt like, wow, Tevye is our home. Boulder is our home. Any place where we have lived and survived is our home. And the fact that it was in the place where that attack had happened a few months earlier, and that many of the people who were there that day were there and came and saw us when we lit Hanukkah candles together.
No, that must have been so powerful. The production opened earlier this month. Sarah, was there a moment where you hesitated to move forward with the production? And if so, what made you and Marc decide to go forward?
I don't think there was ever a moment that we hesitated with the production. Of course, we're not going to let any anti-Semitism or any kind of concerns like that stop us. And the strange and tragic thing is that it just becomes more and more relevant as time goes on. Marc and I have been talking about doing this show for almost 3 years. And the longer we went before actually producing it, the more and more important and more relevant it felt that we had to do this and we had to do it now.
Marc, is there a song or a moment in the show that seems to resonate especially powerfully at the Dairy Center, given what the Jewish community in Boulder has endured over the past year?
It all resonates because one of the things about this show is that it's laughter and tears, it's joy and sadness, it's fear and longing and hope. All of it together. You know, we talked a lot as a cast when we were blocking and choreographing the wedding scene. A Jewish wedding traditionally is, you know, an incredibly joyous event, but it's also one where we break a glass to remember the pain of history. And so it feels like the whole show has that, you know, Sunrise Sunset, which is the song that is sung during the wedding.
Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly flow the days.
Sunrise, sunset, swiftly fly the years, one season following another, laden with happiness and tears. And that idea of laden with happiness and tears, you know, laden with happiness and tears. It feels like that's the whole thing.
Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly fly the years.
And then, of course, the whole community is leaving Tevye. They've been given 3 days to get out, and then you just see them leaving. And just knowing that in America, I mean, a very large percentage of the Jewish community in America are descended from these people who were forced out in pogroms at the beginning of the 20th century from exactly those places. So to see the time and space where our ancestors were driven out is incredibly moving. But there's also something so richly joyful about seeing the community of Tevye going about its daily business, including the wedding and the other cycles that happen throughout the production.
Rabbi Marc Soloway of Congregation Bonai Shalom in Boulder. He's also the lead actor in Fiddler on the Roof at the Dairy Arts Center in Boulder. And Sarah Nowak, who we also spoke with, directed the production, which presents its final shows this weekend. They are sold out. Those music clips you heard in the interview come from the film version of Fiddler on the Roof. We'll put more information on the Boulder production in our show notes and at kunc.org. That's it today for In the NoCo. I'm Brad Turner. Thanks for listening.